Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's devotion for March 4th. Today's devotion is titled Livewire, and the Bible reading is from Mark chapter 9, verses 2 to 10. "6 days later, Jesus took Peter, James, and John and led them up a high mountain to be alone. As the men watched, Jesus' appearance was transformed, and his clothes became dazzling white, far whiter than any earthly bleach could ever make them. Then Elijah and Moses appeared and began talking with Jesus. Peter exclaimed, 'Rabbi, it's wonderful for us to be here. Let's make 3 shelters as memorials, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah.' He said this because he didn't really know what else to say, for they were all terrified. Then a cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, 'This is my dearly loved son. Listen to him.' Suddenly, when they looked around, Moses and Elijah were gone, and they saw only Jesus with them. As they went back down the mountain, he told them not to tell anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept it to themselves, but they often asked each other what he meant by rising from the dead." "I felt like I touched a live wire," said Professor Holly Ordway, describing her reaction to John Donne's majestic poem, Holy Sonnet 14. "There's something happening in this poetry," she thought. "I wonder what it is." Ordway recalls it as the moment her previously atheistic worldview allowed for the possibility of the supernatural. Eventually, she would believe in the transforming reality of the resurrected Christ. Touching a live wire. That must have been how Peter, James, and John felt on the day Jesus took them to a mountaintop where they witnessed a dramatic transformation. Christ's clothes became dazzling white, and Elijah and Moses appeared, an event we know today as the Transfiguration. Descending from the mountain, Jesus told the disciples not to tell anyone what they'd seen until he'd risen, but they didn't even know what he meant by rising from the dead. The disciples' understanding of Jesus was woefully incomplete because they couldn't conceive of a destiny that included his death and resurrection. But eventually their experiences with their resurrected Lord would utterly transform their lives. Late in his life, Peter described his encounter with Christ's transfiguration as the time when the disciples were first eyewitnesses of his majesty. As Professor Ordway and the disciples learned, when we encounter the power of Jesus, we touch a live wire. There's something happening here. The living Christ beckons us. What are some of your live wire experiences? Moments when you've encountered God in a radically new way. How has your knowledge of him changed over time? Thank you for joining me for today's devotion, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.